Hello, everyone. We are so happy to have you with us tonight. My name is Pam Nurse, and I'm the Executive Director of the Federation for Children with Special Needs. And this is our June session of our monthly Connecting Families. And we are very excited tonight to have with us Audrey Falk, who is going to be talking about a bill on parental notification of failed health screenings. And so that we can jump right in, I am going to turn things over right now to Beth Bostick, who is a board member of the Federation and who is our facilitator for tonight. So take it away, Beth.
Thank you so much, Pam, and welcome everybody to this evening's Connecting Families. We are going to talk with our speaker, Audrey Falk, about the work that she has been doing on parental notification of failed health screenings in public school settings, and how we can actually use our voices to make changes in the system. To give you a little bit of background about Audrey, she is the chair of the Department of Applied Health Development and Community Studies in the Winston School of Education in Merrimack College. She is a director of the master's program in community engagement and a full professor. She's a country delegate for the International Higher Education Teaching and Learning Association, and has been on the editorial board of the Journal of Special Education for 13 years. She spent 4 years in a faculty position at the Department of Family Studies and Community Development in Towson University in Maryland. She completed a 1-year postdoctoral research fellowship at the University of Maryland, College Park, funded by the Federal Office of Special Education Programs, and a 2-year postdoctoral, my goodness, my English is stuttering today, postdoctoral research fellowship in American Institutes for Research. Early in her career, Audrey was a Peace Corps volunteer in Romania and worked in nonprofit organizations in Massachusetts, including 3 years with a university community partnership organization in Dorchester, and 5 years in family supports in the South Norfolk County ARC in Westwood, Massachusetts, also known as LifeWorks. I know Westwood very well because I grew up in Medfield. So these two communities are at war with each other, at least on a high school level. But we want to welcome you, Audrey, to help us to understand your experience as a parent working with legislators to propose a bill on parental notification of failed screenings. Audrey's going to talk with us about the importance of the bill, how families can support it, and then also offer some suggestions on how we as parents can use our experiences to advocate for policy changes to better the life of children and families, which of course is a huge topic of interest for us here at the Federation for Children with Special Needs, who started out in very much the same way. So Audrey, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're really looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I will be sharing a PowerPoint, and I'll use the PowerPoint to kind of guide at least the first part of the presentation. So if you'll just give me one moment to share my screen.
All right, and as she's pulling that up, of course, if you have questions as she is presenting, please put them in the chat, and my partner in crime, Leslie, will help me to identify those, and we will incorporate them throughout the presentation or at the end of the presentation as we have time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Beth. And that was a lovely introduction. Thank you, everyone who's here with us today, for joining me for this session on Massachusetts House Bill 3764. I would particularly like to thank the Federation for Children with Special Needs for hosting this event as part of the Connecting Families series. My name again is Audrey Falk, and I will be speaking to you primarily as a parent and sharing with you today about how I have been working with legislators on this particular bill, House Bill 3764. I hope that this session will inspire you to support House Bill 3764 and that it will also motivate you to think about how you can use your voice and your experience as parents and caregivers and family members to advocate for changes that can make a difference for children and families. So this is our overall agenda for my presentation. First, I will share a bit about my own family story with you. Then I'll be discussing the bill and its importance for my family and for all families in Massachusetts. Third, I will make suggestions for how you can support House Bill 3764. And finally, I will offer a few thoughts about how and why you should use your own experience to advocate for systemic changes. So first, my family story. This is my family, the picture you're seeing in front of you. I am on the bottom with my husband, John, beside me. Ben is on the top in the center, my oldest child. Jacob, my middle child, is on the left side, and Hannah is on the right side. She is my daughter who has enlarged vestibular aqueducts, and it's her condition that became the inspiration for this work on this bill. The photo you see here is a bit outdated, just one of my favorites. Hannah is now 10, Jacob 13, and Ben 15. So the story that I'll be sharing with you in regard to Hannah started MLK weekend, January 2022, when Hannah was in the 4th grade. Hannah woke up dizzy that Sunday and spent the morning in her bed. In the afternoon, she felt a little better. Monday was a very similar day, which of course was a holiday, so she was able to stay in bed again. Tuesday, Hannah was getting ready for school and she was putting her shoes on and she felt very dizzy. Hannah's dad drove her to school and she left the car, but she still felt dizzy. Hannah started to ask one of the teachers for help and she vomited. The nurse came and they called my husband to come pick up Hannah. This was, of course, January 2022. And so the nurse sent Hannah and my husband straight to the pediatrician's office for a COVID test. The pediatrician tested for COVID and for flu, and both tests were negative. The following morning was similar. This time, John and I took Hannah to the pediatrician together, but Hannah had essentially collapsed in the garage before we left our house. And when we got to the pediatrician's office, Hannah needed so much assistance to walk that a passerby went in and grabbed a wheelchair from inside the building and brought it out to us to the parking lot so that Hannah could use the wheelchair to get up to her appointment. At this visit, the pediatrician began to realize that there appeared to be some kind of balance issue, and she referred us to an ENT. The ENT, who we initially saw, did not identify the underlying condition. However, through testing Hannah's hearing, he informed us that Hannah had significant hearing impairments in her right ear, something that we had not until then been aware of. It was several weeks later before we had the correct diagnosis for Hannah. Her condition, as I said before, is called enlarged vestibular aqueducts. It's an ear condition that is associated with gradual hearing loss and vestibular issues. EVA is a condition that you are born with. there are enlarged bones in the ears, which can be seen on an MRI. Hannah's MRI shows that she has the enlarged bone in both ears, which means that she could lose all of her hearing in both ears over time. At this time, Hannah's hearing loss is primarily in her right ear. Presently, Hannah's hearing loss in the right ear is considered moderate to profound. Although EVA can also be associated with balance issues, as I mentioned, kids with EVA don't typically have such a significant vestibular challenge as that which Hannah experienced. Hannah had to relearn how to stand and walk, much like someone who had experienced a stroke. Her legs were like jelly. She suffered from a long period of intense headaches, neck pain, and stomach aches. She was so nauseous that she had the sensation that she needed to vomit constantly throughout the day for weeks on end. In the context of trying to make sense of everything that Hannah was experiencing, we asked the schools about the hearing tests that they had done. The school nurse informed us that Hannah had hearing screenings in 2017 and in 2019, and she failed on the right ear both times. In both instances, there was a follow-up test shortly thereafter that Hannah had passed. It's impossible to know for sure what happened, why, how that happened. However, EVA is associated with fluctuating hearing, although the trend is always downward.
Yeah, I would comment. I would just say that I think Matt is, and I would,
Somebody's
the superintendent would look at these
got to
numbers
mute themselves.
along, which I know she will, just for
There we go. So it may be that the school picked up on true fluctuations. Whatever happened, one thing is certain. We were never informed of the failed hearing screenings until we asked in 2022 because of the dramatic hearing and health issues that Hannah was experiencing. From our perspective, this was extreme negligence on the part of the schools. However, from a policy perspective, we learned that the school's practice was somewhat aligned with the policy that is overseen by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. The hearing screening policy requires retesting within a week, but if that test is negative, there is no requirement of parental notification. We contacted the nurse team that oversees this policy and expressed our concerns to them, but they did not make any changes to the policy. You can see here a direct quotation from the letter that they sent to us in December 2022. We will take your feedback into consideration when updating the guidance. Please note that DPH expects the guidance will be updated over the next 2 years. let me go back a sec. So I reached out to Representative Andy Vargas, who I knew professionally, and he said that he could work with us on a bill. We looped in our representative, Tram Wynn, who is the lead on the bill. They and their staff developed language for the bill and gave us the opportunity to have input regarding the language. This is a photo of Hannah from Halloween 2022. You can see that she was able to trick or treat without a walker and without a wheelchair. Thankfully, Hannah is doing much, much better than she had been for the whole second half of her fourth grade year. We returned the wheelchair to the pharmacy the very last week of August 2022, just days before the start of this school year. Although Hannah's hearing impairment is permanent and progressive, at least we know about it now, and we can actively take precautionary measures to help Hannah preserve as much hearing as possible. We would have been able to support Hannah in innumerable ways, and she may have completely avoided the extreme vestibular challenge had the schools informed us of the failed hearing screenings when they occurred in 2017 and 2019. With House Bill 3764, we hope that we can help other families avoid the kind of situation that we have just experienced. By the way, Hannah is Little Red Riding Hood here. So now I will be turning to discussing the bill in greater detail. The hyperlink on this slide is where you can see the full text of the bill. If you simply Google Massachusetts House Bill 3764, the bill will come up easily. House Bill 3764 proposes added language to existing law pertaining to school children's health screenings. The new language requires schools to notify parents or guardians immediately upon any failed health screening that occurs in the schools. It requires schools to inform parents of the results of any follow-up testing. It requires schools to inform parents of educational assistance related to the failed health screening. And it requires schools to provide this information in the family's primary language where possible. As I said, the bill proposes added language. It essentially amends an existing law that's section 57 of chapter 71 of the general laws. As I said earlier, Representative Tram and Representative Vargas are sponsoring the bill, and the bill has been referred to the Joint Committee on Public Health, which includes members of both the Senate and the House. The bill is important for every parent with school-age children in Massachusetts. Although the schools screen our children for a variety of health issues such as vision, hearing, spine, and mental health, there is no law which requires failed screenings to be immediately communicated to parents. For our family, this meant over a 5-year gap between the 2017 hearing screening that she failed and communication to our family. We had no way of knowing that our daughter had a condition which causes gradual hearing loss. We would have known about this in 2017 had the schools communicated to us about the failed hearing screening at this time. This could be anybody's child. This could be your child. This could be any child in Massachusetts. The bill has many benefits for kids and families. It empowers families with information about their children and potential resources to support our children. It gives parents information that they can use to follow up with medical specialists. The bill has the potential to help get children diagnosed sooner and therefore help students get services sooner, which can lead to better outcomes for children. There are no significant costs associated with the proposed bill and immeasurable benefits. On this slide, I'm sharing with you the original proposed language that was shared with me back in March 2023, a little bit earlier when I was working with the legislators on crafting language for the proposed bill. And I wanted to share this with you because I already noted earlier that I had the opportunity to provide input regarding the actual language in the bill. And I wanted to show you that in the original draft, there was really not very much language in it at all, except for the language around the notification within a week's time of a failed health screening. And I reviewed that and shared my feedback in a number of areas and was able to persuade the legislators to add the additional language that I already discussed with you around some of the key important components for the bill, such as requiring the schools to inform parents of any follow-up testing and requiring schools to provide the information in the family's primary language. And I wanted to make that point because as we continue this presentation and talk more about how you can use your voice to make change, I wanted to give you a very concrete example of how I was included in the process of literally crafting the language for the bill. So now we'll talk about how you can support the passage of this bill. Right now, it's just a proposal, and I would like to see it passed. So here are some next steps that you can take if you would like to join me in supporting the bill. Firstly, you can identify your legislators. And again, I've included a hyperlink. If you simply Google in Find My Legislators Massachusetts, you can easily find the link. All you have to do is input your address and you will find who your legislators are if you don't already have that information. And you'll have access to their emails, their phone numbers, and other contact information for your legislators. Then you can contact your legislators and tell them why you support this bill. and you can request that they co-sponsor the bill or thank them if they already are. And you can tell your friends, your family members, your coworkers, everyone you know to support the bill. This is a bill, as I've shared already, that is helpful for any family in Massachusetts. So there's really no reason why anyone wouldn't support this bill. The Joint Committee on Public Health is responsible for reviewing the bill and making recommendations about it. The committee will hold a public hearing at which those who are interested in the bill can address the committee. You can also provide written testimony before or after the public hearing. And it's not too early to do so now. So, in addition to contacting your own legislators, you can contact the members of the Joint Committee on Public Health to provide your written testimony about why you support the passage of the bill and why you believe that they should as well. As I said previously, there will be an opportunity for a public hearing. And at the public hearing, you have the opportunity to speak out your support of the bill. There is at this time no date determined for the public hearing. It is expected that this will occur by February 2024. So if you're interested, you can stay connected with me, stay connected with the Federation in order to find out when the public hearing will take place and to attend the public hearing and to speak at the public hearing. If you'd like to hear from me, this is the best email or Gmail for you to use to follow up with me about this issue, MA Bill H3764@gmail.com. I will put you on my contact list and I will stay in touch with you about the public hearing and any additional updates. And I will also keep the Federation informed about the bill and any updates as well. This is the final portion of my presentation where I'll share some suggestions about how you can use your own experience to make a change. I imagine that each of you has your own compelling story and stories of challenges that you have faced in regard to your children's education and care. It is important that you use your voice to share what may have gone wrong at any point in time and how it could be better for your child, as well as for other families who may go through similar kinds of experiences in the future. Advocacy is largely about communication, relationship building, organizing, and partnership. It is important that you communicate clearly and frequently with all of the individuals and entities that may be able to help address the problems that you have faced, the problems that you've identified in the system. If you are experiencing a school-related issue, as I have in the case of Hannah and the field health screenings, you need to communicate directly with the schools about the issue. You can also communicate directly with the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. In regard to my daughter and my concerns about the failed health screenings, I have also been in communication with the Department of Public Health and the Massachusetts Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. I have communicated with organizations such as Mass Families and Mass Advocates for Children. I think it's important as you're thinking about who to communicate with and what to communicate, really is what is the issue? Who needs to understand your concern, and then who is your audience, and how can you frame your message in a way that it can be received? How can you persuade others to listen to you and to act on the concerns that you share? How you're communicating can be in the form of letters, emails, phone calls, meetings, when you're reaching out again to some of the kinds of entities I just referenced. You can certainly also use social media and web pages and other forms of communication, and just simply word of mouth to get your story out. I think it's valuable to use multiple modalities to communicate your message. And the idea ultimately is to try to build a coalition around your cause or concern. You need to find allies and work with them. And you always need to be sharing your story, thinking about what is compelling about your story, and how might your experience be representative or common to other families. When you are raising a concern, it helps to have ideas for possible solutions. If it is a policy issue, legislators and their staff can work with you to identify existing laws and gaps. But ultimately, it's your story that can make the difference in helping legislators and community members understand why the change is so important and needed. It's also important that you support one another in this work, that you form alliances with each other, and that you are an ally for one another, just as I am asking you to be a partner with me on this bill, House Bill 3764. It's been my pleasure to speak with you, and I hope that I've persuaded you to take action to support House Bill 3764 by contacting your legislators and the Joint Committee on Public Health, and that you will also feel motivated to pursue necessary policy changes based on your own story and experiences. I hope that the takeaway message that will stick with you is that you can channel your energy toward positive change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Audrey, for not only sharing your story, but using it to benefit so many other families who have probably may not even be aware that there's data out there that they could be using to support the well-being of their children. And it's also just quite ironic to me that probably the original intent of those screenings to begin with was to support that very cause. And somehow, some way, because someone didn't write it down specifically, families are not getting access to information that they have every right to have access to. The irony of the things that could have been prevented, and the significant challenges that your daughter ended up having that might have been avoided. It's very frustrating to know that such a loophole exists in the system, and yet on so many levels it feels so very, very familiar. So I'm wondering if there is anybody who has any questions for Audrey.
I don't see any specific questions in the chat just yet. I do have a question. I was wondering if you had done any research to see if other states had language that was, better than Massachusetts or, similar, and using that as a tool to kind of
Mhm.
move the system here in Massachusetts.
That is such a great question. And I will say that I personally did not do that research. I know that in my communications with Rep. Wynn and Rep. Vargas, that their staff, did a fair amount of research on the issues, but I don't know if that was one of the things that they did. It's a really great question, and it is something I would be interested in following up on. Um,
Because one of my things is, so
mhm,
make change in Massachusetts, wonderful, but
mhm,
maybe we should make change throughout the country
mhm,
because this is such an important issue. So
yeah.
I'm just, that's your next step. I'm like, we'll do this in
Start
the
locally.
spring,
Yes.
and then we'll get you going.
Yeah, no, it's such a great point. And one of the things that I didn't really highlight when I was suggesting to all families that they can be change makers is, one of the important pieces, of course, is always thinking about what is the level of change that you're looking to make, right? So sometimes, you know, changing a policy within your school or within your school district can really make a difference for your children and for a lot of families, right? And on the other hand, Leslie makes a really great point that why not go national with change, right? so so there's many levels you can make a change at, and any change, any positive change is a good thing, whether it's a smaller um, regional kind of change, institutional change, or a larger state or national change. You have to start someplace.
So one thing by coming to the Federation is we're getting your message out. We also have platforms and connections to other families. So I'm hoping that other families will support you, but you also may find some of those families that have been affected by this, and they're allies who can come forward and tell their story also in testimony. I think that's very powerful. We saw that when the dyslexia regulations were being adopted, and there were hundreds of people in the room, sharing personal stories to make that system-wide change in the state. So thank you for coming forward and telling your story. It's so powerful, and it really it's important for all of us. I'm just amazed because I just remember the controversy when students' weight was going home and families were appalled that,
Right.
this
Right.
kind of thing was, and I'm like, well, this is the same thing. It's
Mhm.
it's information about your child that you need to have more conversations with medical professionals and others. And it's challenging, I think, sometimes that we don't have the right balance.
Yes, no, I completely agree, Leslie, and thank you for all of your comments. I certainly hope that everybody who's listening today or everybody who's connected with the Federation will join me in supporting the passage of this bill. And for some of you, it may be because you have a very similar story to mine. And certainly, if that's the case, I hope that you'll feel comfortable to share that with your legislators and with the Joint Committee on Public Health, because I think hearing not just my one voice, but many, many voices with similar kinds of concerns and similar experiences will help to persuade our legislators to take this bill seriously and to recommend it for passage. But I also think some of you, even if you don't have that direct experience, but you understand that we are all part of this Federation family, and that by supporting one another, we're supporting all children, then you can still express your support to your legislators, even if you don't have, an experience that's exactly the same as the one that I have shared with you.
So families in support, they have some options too. They can contact their legislator to say that they're in support. So that data gets documented in the system. They can write letters of support, and those would be read into the record so that there's that, or they can actually come to the State House and testify. And I think they're given, help me everyone, like 2 minutes to testify. It's a short time period. So we've always recommended that families, maybe have a script or read from something, because it may be your first time speaking in front of a microphone, and it's a little daunting. So, and I'm happy to practice with any family that wants to do that. And, just have them walk through their comments and why they would be in support. And I think it's so important for our decision makers to hear the voices of families and students.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. And those are really the options that you have, and you can do all of those things. You can contact your legislators. You can contact the Joint Committee. You can come in person to the State House as part of the public hearing. And that oral testimony you can give, especially if you've prepared a nice written script, you can also hand that over, and then that becomes your written testimony as well. So there's plenty of options, plenty of ways for you to share your voice. And as I said too, another way is just also encouraging others that you know to do the same as you are. And once Leslie's helped you to prepare some beautiful emails or letters or scripts for the testimony, those you can share too with family and friends, and say, hey, just adapt this and submit it as well.
So I'm always encouraging families to be the experts, because they are, and just come forward and stand in support of something that sounds reasonable, and it's not too expensive, and it would have such an impact on students and families' lives. So that's, and I think for a lot of families, it's a little daunting to maybe contact your legislator if you've never done it. And I did that with my son once and brought him to speak with a legislator. And it was a really actually fun experience. They make it very friendly. You have a scheduled time. The aides will be really good in communicating with you if schedules change, etc. But it is it's a nice process to meet with your elected officials and to talk to them and really ask them questions and have them ask you questions. So I would encourage everyone to try it and to make those connections. And you just never know when you might need a connection. And now you've been able to make that, it's all about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely. As I said in my presentation, advocacy is about communication, and it's about relationship building. And it's true that it can feel very intimidating to reach out to a legislator or come to a public hearing. But it's the work that, as many here have said already, it's the work that is critical to our population. It's the work that's critical to moving forward the rights of individuals with disabilities, and making sure that children with disabilities are being served equitably. And so everything that we can do as individuals, as family members and caregivers is essential for continuing positive change in Massachusetts and in our communities, and nationally. And it's all of our responsibility to be a part of that change. And I think that, as you said, Leslie, the more that we just kind of take that initiative and try something, it just becomes a thing that you do, right? And it's not so scary, and everyone involved is just another human, right? So the legislators are just other people, as we are people, so just remembering that it's about humans, and it's about relationships, and it's about ultimately the people that you love best in the world.
So I put the link to your bill in the chat so people have that and can read it. And it's quite short, so it's, you know, easy to access. I also put the link to find your legislator. So in case they just don't know and have never done it before, there's a nice website at the masslegislator.gov site where it's a map and you can find your legislator and all that contact information. So there are ways, and they can always contact the Federation. We'll steer them to the right person, but you really probably can contact any public official because they're all elected. We all pay taxes. So it's nice to develop relationships with your local representatives. So I'm really excited because I think this is what ground roots, grass, advocacy is all about. It's like something that affected you and you want to make a change. And it's not easy to make change, and you have to go through the process. You have to respect the process. And it takes time. And it's now you're at least going to be a year and a half to at least have it heard. And then there'll be it goes through committees and debates and all of that. So it's a long process. That I commend you for your resilience and your steadfastness, because it is a difficult process, and sometimes that is hard to overcome when you see, well, this is so obvious, why don't we just do it? But you're respecting the process, and I respect you for staying with it. I guess it's important.
Advocacy is not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. But always keeping in mind, I mean, for some reason, I have Schoolhouse Rock playing in my background. I'm just a bill, just an ordinary bill. I don't know, I'm dating myself, but anyway. But we've all learned about the process. It may have been a long time since we remember what we learned back in the day, but there is a process for doing it. And it is one that takes some time, but our systems are very purposely designed to make sure that careful thought and consideration goes into the work that we're doing. And our legislators are, in fact, in those roles the vast majority of the time because, like you, they want to see positive change in their community. So developing those relationships with your local legislators, of course, is ideal because they need to know who you are, what your issues and concerns are, and how they might be able to represent them while they're doing their jobs up there in the Capitol, and having those rigorous conversations. So I echo Leslie's sentiment. Thank you so much, Audrey, for taking your story and using it to impact what I'm sure will be multiple children. Because again, the beauty of what you're asking people to do is it's not going to cost anybody to do anything more than notify you. That's all we need to do. And yet the potential cost savings for families and for our state as a whole is massive when you think about it, in terms of medical care and technology and DME and all of those things. So it seems like such an obvious thing to do, and yet sadly, we have to make sure that we are just that technical to make it happen. So thank you for taking the time to do that, because of course, in addition to everything else that you're doing to just manage the care of your child, this is another very time-consuming process that you're managing at the same time. But that is, in fact, even how special education got started, right? And so somebody said, hey, something needs to change. And a group of people got together and did a lot of work, which is part of the reason why we're even able to have this conversation today. So thank you again for joining us, Audrey. We really very much appreciate it. Please make sure that people pay attention to the links that Leslie was so kind to include in the chat so that you can do some of your own work. Think about whether or not there are ways that you can be some small part to the larger system, because every little bit counts and makes a difference. So thank you for that. So Audrey, were there any concluding remarks you wanted to make before we actually wrapped up for the evening?
Thank you so much, Beth. You did a beautiful summary. I don't know that I have much to add, except just great appreciation to everyone here, our folks from the Federation who have joined me, and then all of you who are listening. And I do hope that you are inspired to support the bill, and that you will also think about how you might address concerns that you have at a larger level as well. So thank you again.
All right, thank you. So I believe that is all that we have for this evening. Pam, is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap this up?
Audrey, I'd also like to, thank you for joining us tonight and thank everyone who's been part of this call for being with us. I do encourage everyone to reach out to your legislators to support House Bill 3764. In addition, the Federation is a training that Leslie often does on telling your story. If you would be interested in that, reach out to us and we can look into scheduling that. It's a really great training. I do want to let you know about just a couple of upcoming events. On June 15th at 5 o'clock, we're going to have the first in a series of listening sessions we're doing this year that we're co-sponsoring with DESE, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, to gather feedback on Massachusetts special education indicators. We also have our next Connecting Families on July 6th at 5 p.m. And that topic is going to be early intervention. I hope that you're able to join us. And as soon as tonight closes, you're going to be receiving a link to a survey. Please fill it out. We really do use that information. And thank you again for joining us.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, again. Have a wonderful, safe evening. I know many people are looking forward to school year ending and having a little bit of a break. So the end of the school year is not for the faint of heart. So everybody make sure you're taking care of yourselves while you're taking care of others. And always remember that we here at the Federation are here to support you in any way that we possibly can. So we're just a call or an email or an Instagram message away. You can find us and we will do everything we can to support you. Until then, have a great evening. Know that you're appreciated. You're doing a great job in case somebody didn't tell you that today. And we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.